Hi, this is Starkey Sowers. Welcome again to another Plus Program training series. Today's topic is macronutrients, carbohydrates, and this is part 2. So one of the things that we were talking about in part 1, and we're going to kind of continue on part 2, is that the macronutrients indeed are specifically a unique category, so to speak, of nutrients. Remember that we have different types of nutrients. So when we look at the nutrients, we have macronutrients as well as micronutrients. The macronutrients are going to be proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. The micronutrients are going to be vitamins and minerals. Some advantages, obviously, for macronutrients: they provide energy, they help with structure of the body. They also help with regulatory aspects, such as like hormones, as well as what we call like neurotransmitters and things of that nature. All right, so with that said, one of the things that we want to do is we're going to kind of focus in on carbohydrates. And carbohydrates, remember, there's 3 specific types of carbohydrates. Number 1, there is what we call the simple carbohydrates, often defined as the sugars, as well as the complex carbohydrates, or the starches, oftentimes is what we'll call them, as well as the fibers. And we oftentimes call those what is known as, rather, the undigestible fibers. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit. It's kind of unique when we look at the aspects of undigestible, because the body actually does use them and it actually does digest, but technically just doesn't happen inside the body cells, so to speak. All right, so with that said, let's look at the monosaccharides. We had a lot of information last session on that. So when we look at the monosaccharide sugars, one of the things that we notice is this. Number 1, when it comes to the United States, there's a large consumption of sugars, of roughly about 130 pounds of sugar per person. That's added sugar. We're not just talking fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. We're talking actually added sugars. And that boils down to about 20 teaspoons a day. It's a lot of sugar. And a couple of things that we talked about when it comes to those added sugars: number 1, there's going to be a change in the nutritional facts panel. It's actually going to start showing you that there's added sugars. And a great example of that would be, let's say you go and you buy like grape juice and you think, I'm drinking 100% grape juice. And it doesn't say 100% grape juice on it. On the panel, it says grape juice. And then it says, organic sugar added to it as a great example. Well, how much of that was actually sugar added to it? And how much of that actually was grape juice? Well, we don't know unless it's actually defined. In the new nutritional facts panel, it's actually going to define that. So it would show you like carbohydrate total like 23, added sugars like 20. Well, that means you're only getting 3 grams of actual sugars from the grape juice. Well, that's not really grape juice. That's just a bunch of sugar. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of the new nutritional facts panel. Definitely going to be helping a lot of that aspects, so to speak. So it'll help you kind of be able to define what's good and what's bad. The other thing that we alluded to as well too is a large amount of overconsumption of sugars actually is correlated to different types of functions or dysfunctions in the body, such as cavities, as well as specific types of diseases, including heart disease, obesity, as well as diabetes too. So you want to make it simple. Eat a couple pieces of fruit a day for those simple sugar needs, and then ultimately read the labels and be super cautious about what's in those ingredient panels, so to speak. All right, with that said, I want to do a little bit of a focus, and let's look at carbohydrates from a different light. And let's look at complex carbohydrates. And complex carbohydrates are definitely the go-to carbohydrates, typically a little bit lower on the glycemic index and things of that nature. So what are complex carbohydrates? Well, when we look at complex carbohydrates, they indeed are that. Instead of the simple sugars like 1 or 2 sugars added together, now we're starting to see big old chains of carbohydrates or glucoses stacked together. In fact, those stacks can go anywhere from like 5 all the way up to like maybe 40. So that's a lot of them in big long chains or big long trains or pearls on a string, so to speak. And the body has to take those and digest those a little bit differently. So a couple unique things about complex carbohydrates. Number 1, they provide a nice even flow of glucose into the bloodstream. So it helps to maintain blood sugar levels at a nice even pace and let your body slowly use the sugars as needed. We definitely know that complex carbohydrates have a tendency to be a little bit better when it comes to not increasing body weight or body fat, because the body metabolizes them much slower. So another advantage, of course, with complex carbohydrates as well too, is they're high in fibers. So what's unique about fibers is they not only help aid in digestion, but a bunch of other different things. We're going to see that in the next slide. Okay, so high in fibers, definitely slow digesting, release complex carbohydrates, get into the system very slowly. At the same time, they also have a couple other unique things, which is like blood sugar stabilization. So where are we going to find those things from? So ultimately, complex carbohydrates, we see them on all different types of whole grains. So rice, quinoa, any type of whole grain that you can imagine. And mind you, I'm saying whole grain would be the best source because you're going to get the fibers with that whole grain. Another source that you also get it from are what we call root vegetables. such as potatoes and yams, as well as other different types of vegetables such as squashes are included in this list as well. Nuts and seeds and legumes also have great complex carbohydrates and very effective for the body's metabolism, and also nice slow release sugars along the way. All right, final note we're going to do is we're going to look at fibers. And so when we look at fibers, fiber components obviously found in a lot of different fruits and vegetables as well. So don't forget that you are going to get fibers in those whole grain as well as those whole fruits and vegetables. All right, so unique thing about fibers is this. Number one, they have a lot of different functions in the body. Remember I said they were non-digestible. Very similar to those long chain starches, but the body actually can't digest them. So what they do is they end up in the alimentary tract or in the colon, and bacteria actually consume these things. So that's kind of interesting. So here's these fibers, a couple things. Number one, they add bulk or they add water or hydrate the stool, so they help the body actually reduce hemorrhoids and things of that nature. The other thing that they do is they actually detoxify and cleanse the body of any type of toxins that typically come through bile and things of that nature. But another thing that they actually do, which is really unique, is they're prebiotics and they feed good bacteria. So this bacteria, these good bacteria, chew them up, and for lack of better terms, they actually poop out or crap out these particular types of substances such as hydrogen peroxide as well as lactic acid, which prevent bad bacteria from being able to grow. All right, so they're prebiotic. They also help with regulation on blood sugars, allowing blood sugars to go up very slowly. And so the final caveat on this is this. Fibers also help to reduce weight. So they help in what we call weight management. A couple unique ones that are out there on the market. One is called PGX. They've done a lot of different research on diabetes and diabetes 2, as well as weight loss, kind of making it the fiber of choice for individuals that might want to consider using an added fiber supplement or something like that. So that kind of wraps up our series on carbohydrates, gives you a little bit of information about simple, complex, and fibers, kind of rounding out a whole different array of carbohydrates. You might have thought before that there's only one type. There's definitely not one type. Thanks for watching again, another Plus Program training series.